Brought to you by Quantum Healing Systems. The quantum twine wave effect was introduced originally with the QT-Wave device, now amplified in the QTWE and ultimately in the Q-Arc. The future is quantum limitless. This QHS project holds surprises coming your way. We are proving that everything is frequency and frequency is everything. Hey everyone, welcome to the Quantum Healing Systems Ambassador Show, where we have Alex Collier, Ron Giles, and Will Barney. My name's Tracee. I'll be the host to just facilitate these geniuses discussion. Hey guys, how's it going?
Thank you for the compliment. For me, it's fine.
That's good. You're welcome. It's actually true. I really love the contribution that each and every one of you guys make to our community. The humanitarian movement is where it's all at. So I guess we'd like to start the conversation was, how'd you get here? I mean, I know you each have a very unique journey that has a lot of similarities and crossovers, but how did you get here?
I took the 5 freeway to Interstate 80 and went east, and I got off in Colorado.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, you were smart.
Right?
Why Colorado?
Oh, John Denver.
There we go.
Venturing home.
Rocky Mountain High. I absolutely loved it, where the mountains are so high that he can touch the face of God. You
There
can
you
hear
go.
his casual reply. I had to see it for myself.
There you go.
And I did, and I absolutely fell in love with this place.
Well,
But if we could straighten out the wacky politics, this would be one of the most amazing places to live.
heaven on earth. Yeah. I'll have to agree with you. I like Montana too, but they
Montana's
get
gorgeous.
cold. They get cold in the wintertime. Of course, every place does.
Yeah, it's colder. Yeah, it's so cold you don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
So,
And then it makes you wonder how much of that is natural.
well, Montana has a history of being cold.
Mhm. Well, snow is snow.
Any history that it would be that. So, but we haven't heard from our esteemed colleague, Mr. Barney.
I've spent time in the Rocky Mountains. I grew up as a youth in central Utah and then moved away from there and found myself back there for a few years in the mid 2000s, kind of between 2005, 2008. And then I made my way east. So went to Tennessee first. I spent a number of years there, and then my current wife dragged me across the border to Kentucky. So in Kentucky at the present moment, but I'm originally from Arizona. So
Wow.
I've experienced all of those things.
If you
Well,
had
the cold, the north, the south.
If you had a favorite place, Will, where would it be?
I'll tell you where I find peace is in the mountains. For me, there's something about that is great. Now, my wife, she'd rather be at the beach, but we compromise and try to visit both.
Well, is Kentucky a compromise?
Not necessarily.
I didn't think so. I don't recall a beach,
No, but I tell you, the Smoky Mountains are beautiful too. And
yeah, they are.
It's if you've been in the Great Rockies, though, I refer to them as the hills, the Smoky Hills.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking at 14,000 foot peaks, it is a little different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's breathtaking. It really is. I mean, there's places here that I've never seen a footprint, even after, 8 billion people on the planet or whatever the number is. There's still places here I've never had a footprint. That intrigues me,
Yeah. Where's that? I'd like to go there. Put my first footprint.
Areas of the Rockies. Lots of
Yeah.
areas of the Rockies. I've never had a footprint on them.
Maybe after the healing bed, Ron. We can all go on a hike
Yeah.
together.
Okay.
Hike.
I'd love to do that after the heating bed. Yes.
We'll chip in and get you a jetpack. So you
Yeah,
can,
I like that too. And don't have to walk up, just get up there as long as you can hover while you're there, and then you settle down.
yeah, you can
But
elevate.
when you have a 30-year-old body, you're gonna want to walk up there. You're gonna be inspired.
You
No.
are you are correct. There's an
She said,
assumption there that I had missed out on, but
she says that
there's a lot of things
walk
I'd
the
like to do.
Rockies, but yeah, the higher you go, the thinner the air. Jetpack is a really good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now let's talk about the real question. So,
Okay.
Alex, since you started, what brought you to humanitarian work?
Oh, I've always cared. You know, growing up, we saw a lot of things happen. We saw death, we saw fires, we saw car wrecks, accidents, all kinds of things, and how that would change someone's life and the trajectory of not only an individual's life, but the trajectory of the entire family. And then to see that happen to countries and nations. I've been able to travel a fair bit around the world. And you know, there've always been very specific causes. For me, especially, you know, coming from a large family, kid stuff, you know, and it's no secret that I've talked about, you know, kids disappearing and being involved in that. But then there's the work of St. Jude's, you know, curing childhood cancers or attempting to. I mean, if you've ever been to a St. Jude's and you've, you know, walked in there and you've seen these just precious, beautiful babies and you know, toddlers and infants suffering from cancer, it literally just breaks your heart. And,
Oh,
you know, and we'll get to the veteran thing in a minute, but you know, who would not be moved by something like that? So, you know, the idea is when I always wanted to donate, you know, and make a significant difference if possible. But, you know, ever since I learned about quantum healing systems and especially the Q arc, you know, I would spend a fortune to try to get one of those in an experimental fashion or proof of concept fashion into a St. Jude's, and let's put these kids in this thing and see what it can do. Because it's ridiculous that we haven't found a cure for cancer yet. So they tell us, right? So, you know, and it's not okay to make money off the suffering of children in any fashion. So, you know, that's always been in the back of my head ever since I saw Morane Faceas or the Andromedan holographic camera. You know, that's always been in the back of my head. But I didn't know there was anything like that until Cynthia called me and said, hey, you know, we have this technology, and I got the whole lowdown about it, going back into the 80s and 90s, or the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, and you know, how this technology evolved. And I'm like, wow, you mean this actually exists and they shut it down once? Well, we can never let that happen again. So it's become like a crusade for me. Plus the fact that it works. I mean, I use it myself every day. So, you know, and then of course there's the veterans giving the opportunity to heal their physical body, their ailments, you know, not only of PTSD, but of course, any wounds that they suffered during the war. And the lack of care by the VA to these veterans, you know, I mean, it's socialized medicine. In my humble opinion, it's shit. And they deserve better. They absolutely deserve better. And my hope is that we can get at least one of these into St. Jude's for trial. And then, maybe here in Colorado, I can get my hands on 4, 5, 6, 7 of these ARCs, have a staff, and we can start, using the RV resources to bring veterans all up and down the Rocky Mountains here in and get them in the device to heal and hopefully reverse age and give them back those years they lost in war. And at the same time, talk to them and say, guys, it's okay to let go of the grief. It's time to let go of the grief of war, what you saw, what you experienced. It's time to heal and take advantage of these years now that you've gotten back to live a life that's joyful and to just turn yourself around and your family and do all the things that you've wanted to do, because you deserve that. That's why I'm in this, not to mention helping my kids and my brothers and sisters, that those that are still alive and their families and create generational wealth. That's what it's for. It's just to do the right things, and obviously one person can't do all the right things, but if you lead by example, you can get many others to do the right things too.
I was just thinking that all of those veterans, you're teaching them how, like, you're getting a second chance and you can pay it forward, by sharing
Exactly.
this with others. You can create a massive team to go out and,
Yeah.
work that RSS that Ron's putting out there. That's going to be an organic growth of how we can spread, wealth to humanity as well as healing.
What Ron has put together is a remarkable blueprint.
Awesome.
Remarkable blueprint.
So
Thank you,
Ron,
Alex.
how did you first get involved in humanitarian movement?
Well, it's an interesting, a different story, a different way to get to the same place, perhaps. I started with Dinar Chronicles. I had a friend who said you can get currencies, dinar, whatever, and then when the revaluation takes place, they'll go from what was depressed values because of what the wars did to their countries, and then you'll get a fair amount of money. And so I started gathering dong, and stuck with Dinar Chronicles and went through all of that gyrations. I call them Guru News Network because they call themselves gurus, and that's a small g. Beg your pardon for those who are gurus, but just they were not credible. And but I found out that there was a redemption involved with the Zimbabwean currencies. Now they used bonds as currency. 100 trillion note was basically for a while was the biggest, and then they started doing others. But you had to take a truckload of $100 trillion notes to get a bus pass to go across town. And so it was so, and then the government started producing larger and larger bonds, so you didn't have to take a truckload. You could get one of these large bonds. But the redemption of those bonds was the thing that intrigued me. And I heard along the way that if you didn't have a project, you wouldn't be able to redeem. So I figured out a project, and I had a friend. I was telling him all about it. He says, "Well, why don't you start publishing those on Dinar Chronicles?" And I said, well, he said, it's on the internet, so you can use that. And people will love to start doing the same thing that you're doing. Well, I said, well, okay. And I had no intentions of using Loved One Society's programs to share with other people. But since then, it's blossomed into quite an awesome experience for me. And I learned how to communicate with the heavens when I was about 30 years ago. So it's been a pleasure to have that to support what I was trying to do. And I felt like, yeah, I'm really smart here, aren't I? When people would say things like that, and the reality hit me, we downloaded it to you, my son. You can get up on the stage if that's what you feel you want to do, but we all know where it came from, and so I'm not going to say glory be to God because he doesn't need any more glory. It happened, and I believe that Loved One Society was created in the spirit world before it was here on the earth. And those who help create it are the ones who get that resonance in their heart that means that they're part of Loved One Society. They helped create it in the other side of the veil. And we did that so we humanitarians would have something to do when we got down here. And Loved One Society is just a structure of programs that can be used to help you do your projects, your humanitarian projects, and enhance the ability to do it on a wide basis. So I went through an awful lot. It took me about, Dinar Chronicles was 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah. Well, that's good because you've developed quite a following and you have a lot of foot soldiers who are going to be able to spread out all this wealth. And, I'm one of them. Awesome. So let's hear from our friend Will. Will, how'd you get here?
Oh, it's quite a journey, as we all have those journeys, but it begins way back, but I'm going to cut it short. Okay, so we'll make this quick. In 2007, I found myself up in the mountains on the Continental Divide, doing a little bit of soul searching. I'd been quite successful in my life. I had been a banker for a number of years and was becoming disillusioned, if you will, with the entire profession, because there seemed to be this overriding focus that was all about money, and that it was perfectly okay. In fact, it was even acceptable in the industry to walk over whoever you need to in order to get it. And something in my heart just said, this is wrong, because aren't the people really the value on this planet? And of course we are. It is the people. So I began to focus on some things. And in 2008, I got together with other founders of our organization. And we got together over Mother's Day weekend and committed to each other to do something about changing this entire process. And so we sought to launch a number of humanitarian projects at that point. And I really felt like I had the seed money kind of gathered. At the time I probably had a pending book of business that was over $750 million. And it was with expectations that some things would happen. But as we all know, in 2008, by August of that year, we had a banking collapse. And needless to say, within 6 months, all of that business had evaporated and things had to be completely restructured in terms of what we were going to do. That led us in a direction when I had a friend approach me and said, do you know anything about historical bonds? I really didn't know much about them at the time, but I told him that I probably knew somebody that did because I had a lot of contacts. I made some calls and that began a journey in learning about these bonds that were meant to be repaid. These are bonds that go back to the funding of the Industrial Revolution of the world. And many countries borrowed large sums of funds to try to expand the Industrial Revolution, to get railway, to get steel mills, to get all of these things, factories going. And the funding for this, as I would later learn, came from some very wealthy families that have a thousands of year history in holding on to great wealth that was meant for humanitarian purposes. So it became clear that there needed to be a way to fund these projects in a way that didn't comprise debt, that didn't require these projects to be indebted from day one and then struggle to crawl their way out. The whole system seemed wrong to me. I knew that the system we were in was a debt-based system, and I couldn't see how God could bless the entire world through debt. It didn't make sense to me. And so, as of course, we learned that this system was not a godly system. It was foisted upon the people of the world. And you've got central banks in all of the modernized countries that are all operating in this same manner, and they're all owned by the same criminal families. And they want to control the world. That's their whole plan. So I learned very early on that there was actually a desire by the elders who were sitting on some of these resources to do something different. They had not been repaid their previous what they thought was a gift to the world when they industrialized, and but they didn't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. And so there was an effort made they would rescue the world one more time. They had the funds, they had the gold, the silver, the things to back it. However, they wanted to know that it wouldn't be a repeat. And that tied in with Nezra and Jezra and all the stuff going on with those things. And because in 2001, on September 11th, we had a catastrophe in the United States. Instead of a blessed day of Jubilee, which is what it was meant to be, we had thousands of people killed in this attack. There's going to be a lot more information coming out about that attack, and that it was done by the very people who were trying to stop this wealth from getting to the people. So I don't want to go through all the details. It would take us too long, but I want to say this. When we set out to do these projects, our desire was that the world was broken, that there was real problems. And I had spent years financing subdivisions, medical centers, all kinds of buildings. And what the interesting thing is some of those clients that I had went bankrupt when the financial collapse occurred, because they had projects unfinished and they were never going to get there with the current circumstances. So I made a decision to leave banking altogether around that time. I think it was in 2010, I quit completely and said, you know what, this won't save the world. And I wanted to sleep at night. So I made a change to get out of there and to seek for a better way to fund these projects. The RV became a clear solution because of these families that were agreeing to put up the resources that have been held for humanity. There was some concern and trepidation on their part, because if it was found out what they had, their lives would be in danger. So you had this, there's a safety thing going on here. And we've been at war for much longer than 3 or 4 years, as some people estimate. This has been going on a long time, and there's actually been decades put into it to get us to the point where the system can be changed, and it will collapse. You can't have a system designed around debt with no way to come out of that debt and expect it to just continue on. Of course, it's going to, the debt builds and then it just implodes on itself, right? And that day's coming soon. So when it comes to humanitarian projects, the goal was, we need to relieve the suffering. We need to bring healing to the people. We need to bring shelter. Our planet is currently somewhere in the range of 1 billion homes needed just to house our current population. We've got a long ways to go to meet those needs so that everybody has a good solid roof over their head. And I know that Ron and Alex are all about that. They want to relieve the suffering. And I think that's what makes a good humanitarian, is that you can't sit idly by and do nothing. You have to do something, because we can't, like the children suffering with cancer. Why haven't we beat cancer? Well, you'll find the reasons when you look at the current medical system and where it was derived from. And we won't go into that because we don't have time. But the same people that have attacked us financially have attacked us with health, have attacked us in every way, because they think there's too many of us. And so when you become to that realization, it just makes you, for me, I just became more determined to stop this, to stop the madness, stop the suffering. It's time that we put those things aside that have been harming our planet, and we begin to help each other. And so we have hundreds of projects. It'll be thousands very soon, because there's a lot more people want to come in. I'm just holding the door closed at the moment until funds are ready. But the reality is there's so much to do. We could spend the next 20 years and still be working on it. And I had somebody approach me one time. They said, look, you've got a system for launching projects or getting implemented with best practices for business and all of that. And I said, yeah, we're working on that. And he said, well, great, let's work together and we can run all the projects. I said, I don't want to run all the projects. Do you know what I want? I want 1,000 people like me, or 20,000 people like me, because we need many of us to do the work. You don't do it with one organization. You need many. You need everyone engaged. And I think that that's happening in a great way, because I'm running into more and more people that say, I've got a project that I want to do. I don't just have one, I have 5, I have 10, I have several that I want to get involved in. And that's what we need. We need everybody working together to do this. And it's not about money to me. It wasn't when I started this. It was about a way of funding projects that wasn't enslaving the project. The whole debt system was just, it seems so wrong. So yeah, I put some of my wealth and my earnings into various assets that are expected to have an improved value. We don't talk about what that is or how much it'll be. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're all doing something to move forward and ease the suffering, ease the pain. There's, I had a conversation with a friend of mine earlier today, and he was asking me about automobiles, about electric cars. And I said, what's interesting is this year we celebrate 100 years of electric cars. In 1924, Nikola Tesla had an electric car, and he had a little battery, but it didn't run on the battery. The battery was just kind of it just held a little excess juice if he needed a little bit of a boost, right? He was pulling energy from the air, powering his car 100 years ago. And we still don't have that. This is the cabal at work. This is holding all of humanity back. And so we are at war against principalities of dark forces in high places. And we have an opportunity here to gather our resources and to gather our hearts and our minds and to say, we're going to build heaven. We're going to build something that's absolutely incredible. And we're going to advance this technology to better care for our people. And the time is now. No better time. I didn't come to the RV for money. I started projects first. So for me, it was a little bit different. I got directed to this as a way to fund all of the projects that I had because they were beyond my resources.
The same for all of us, that, we needed something in order to fund everything we wanted to do in order to help humanity. So, the universe is so creative. It'll lead us in directions. And we're like, why am I going this way? And somehow something will happen and it'll bring us right back to where we wanted to be. So you just never know, the trails you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's for sure.
Ron, to what you were saying about the housing, one of the programs that I was going to talk to you about, and I guess we'll just do it at the moment, to help the vets was, all along the Rockies, we have bark beetle. And they've been killing trees, vast areas of the forest. So the goal was to work with federal, state, the Native American tribes, go in with professional loggers, cut down all those dead trees, okay, remove them from the forest, take them to a lumber yard, do what you do with the wood, and then we would build housing for veterans to get them off the street. And at the same time, because of the fire issue, some of these salvage yards that the military has with aircraft, helicopters, we go in, we refurbish them, and we refurbish them to fight fires. And then we put together in place a program, a maintenance program, so that they wouldn't have to worry about it, let's say for 10, 12, 15 years. And the money, of course, would come from regenerative interest that would keep financing the program itself. And we could get a lot more aircraft up in the air for not only search and rescue, but to fight forest fires, to get them out a lot quicker so we can protect the forest and protect the wildlife. Those were all part of the program. And I can't imagine, it's amazing. And this is something that goes on around the world. Every country, not every country, but many, many countries, South America, all of the Northern Hemisphere has that issue with forest fires, and this would be something that would be a very good model. And once we figure it out and we hone it down, it could be an excellent model for others to follow, not to mention the fact it would create so many jobs, really good paying jobs.
What I was just thinking about is the 6,000 technology patents that have been suppressed, and how when those are released, it's going to make everyone's job a lot easier. And I do feel that many of us are, past the age of our youth. And so by restoring ourselves to a younger self, a healthier self with more energy, more years left in our life, and more vitality, then that's going to help us do these projects. It's going to help others as they restore their bodies to participate in all of your projects. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And one of our initial projects we're coming out of the gate with is something that will help you, Alex, with your project. It is a project designed to restore the original aerobic microbes back to the soil as it was when God created it, before all the chemical fertilizers and everything else destroyed that ecosystem. The interesting thing about these microbes is not only are they good for the soil, they naturally aerate it, but they work themselves up. They'll literally crawl up the trees and coat it with a coating of microbes. The interesting thing is we've learned now 20 years of research on this project that those microbes eat the eggs of the insects, and those insects leave, the bark beetle, all that, it can be eradicated. And it's an all natural process. And so there's solutions that are going to come that are going to help us all.
Do you spray it from the air down to the surface?
It can be sprayed, or you can broadcast on the forest floor. The challenge with spraying from the air is getting it to the floor. You'll get onto the trees, but we kind of want both. So there may have to be a broadcasting. One of the thoughts was, somebody said, well, hey, couldn't we just put a broadcaster on the back of an ATV and, four-wheeler and just run through the forest? And of course you could. That's one way of putting it right to the soil. It's probably a combination. You'd want to spray from top with a liquid form. But these microbes have been around for thousands of years. The problem is they've been suppressed by what I call big ag that has that has pursued this. And the problem is just like medicine. Big ag couldn't get a patent on a natural organic microbe. They can only get a patent on an anaerobic, what you call a hybrid microbe. Here's the problem with anaerobic. Anaerobic lives on no oxygen, and it tends to create environments where oxygen isn't needed.
Right.
Well, that's not helpful. Not helpful for the soil, not helpful for the plants, not helpful for anything. And so it's causing problems, and it also creates a hard, compacted soil is the result that you get from that. And so there needs to be a whole new look about how we treat our world. And we're going to try to push this everywhere. Everybody needs it. The results are astounding. You'll be amazed at them. And it's solving a lot of problems. And it's really just getting back to nature, getting back to, what did God give us?
Yeah.
Why can't we make the earth a Garden of Eden? And I think we can.
Ron, you could take those and you could seed rain clouds, and then you'd have complete coverage top to bottom of a forest. As it would come down in rain clouds.
That's a great idea.
I don't see why you couldn't. Essentially, we create a broadcast product by just taking the liquid formula and then spraying it onto small particles of carbon, right? And it coats the carbon. So we take it could be ground up coconut shells. That's a nice carbon source. And you could you spray the material on there, and then it after it absorbs onto the surface, it looks dry. You run it through a granulator, and now you've got granules that you can just broadcast. And then the moment they hit the ground, they get around moisture, they just immediately start multiplying and doing what they do. And so it's a beautiful thing. There's a process of how it's made. It's an all organic, natural process. I don't even have the full formula of it, but I kind of understand the concept. And it's going to be interesting what happens when that begins to take place. I think of a farmer in Ohio that his biggest complaint was that when it rained, his field would turn to a lake. That wasn't very deep, just an inch or two. But he had this kind of a lower spot in his field, and it would just be like a giant puddle. And then when that got too big, it would just run off, right? So he got a little bit of the early formulation of this. It was part of the trial, and he broadcast it on his field, and he got rain 2 weeks later. And he went out there to see how big his lake was, and he didn't have one. The microbes had spread so much in 2 weeks that it had literally opened up the soil, and it became like a sponge, and it literally absorbed it in. And he no longer had this compact hard pan. It was growing, and so incredible things. A lot of times we think of, to feed a plant, we need fertilizer and all these things, and that the roots will pick it out of the ground. But it's actually incorrect. There's actually a whole symbiotic system in the soil. The roots aren't just immediately grabbing it. The microbes are actually bringing it to the roots, the minerals and everything. They pick it up and they form these, you were seeing in our microscope, it's all these little tubes that interconnect everything. And so plants do well when they have a companion, which are these aerobic microbes helping them thrive. And it's amazing what happens. One example is Florida. Florida has lost half of its orange production that it had 30 years ago. It's literally cut in half. Why? It's primarily because of the greening disease. So the greening disease is basically insects. It's pests that's causing this. And they're pouring everything they have, everything they can buy off the shelf on these trees, and it's not making a difference. Greening disease means it affects the tree to the point where it drops the fruit before it's ready. So you don't have a ripe fruit. So they did some testing on this, and they sprayed the trees with this product. And within 12 hours, all the insects were gone, because the microbes were literally eating the eggs of the insects, and they just disappeared.
That's awesome. And of course they would suppress it.
It's just, and
It's
and the same things happened with grasshoppers, with all other types of things. So it wasn't designed as a pest product. It was really designed to help restore the soil so that our plants can thrive. They can do what they want to do. But that is a side benefit that came from it.
That's cool. That's brilliant.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on that, Will.
Oh yeah, there's been lots of conversations about the beetles taking out these trees, and the solutions are there. It's gonna take some effort, and take some money, but I see it as something we can do. We can accomplish it.
That's awesome. We have a farm. I live on a small farm with 80 fruit trees and an organic garden, and the bugs are a real problem. So that's a benefit. And my husband's in the business, but still nothing seems to get rid of those bugs. So
Yeah, they've become quite resistant to some of the formulations out there.
yeah, especially
One of the interesting things that we saw with fruit trees, and this is just a small, I'll keep this short, but we found that the microbes would crawl up the tree. They would eat any of the insect pests that they found. They'd just eat their eggs, but they also coated the fruit. And we found that when the fruit was coated with these microbes, when you picked it from the tree, it had 3 times the shelf life.
interesting.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Amazing.
Nice byproduct. Yeah.
Grew with Mother Nature.
So what about you
There
guys
you
and
go.
your projects? Ron, Alex, do you want to add to that?
Well, it's kind of hard to compare. I'd like to talk to Al or to Will about the historical bonds, and I have a lot of people calling me and asking me what to help get their bonds redeemed, and And I tell them I'm not the one in charge of that, and but there's those who will be in contact with him, and that will have the money. So maybe I can talk to you.
There's a story. There's a story behind the bonds, and here's the short version. They were never meant to be out in the public. They were held by these families that did the financing to the governments. But so much time had went by that, you know, people passed away and the next generation took over and they weren't given instructions or what they were supposed to do with these things. So they thought, well, I inherited this. Maybe I could do something with it. And they started cracking open some boxes and just put it on the black market or whatever, see if they could get some money out of it. So they had a responsibility, which was to keep them protected, don't touch it. But yeah, like I said, they didn't know.
There's a reason for it.
So then they get into the public space. And there was a time when there was talk about, do we just declare them all stolen? Or what do we do with it? But they did decide that, you know what, so many people have these that it's actually a benefit because now the wealth can be spread across many people to help where we're going with the world, to help with the projects that everyone has. And so there is going to be some redemption. I don't know if all bonds will be redeemed. Those doors have opened and closed. A couple times it said, okay, we're still open. And sometimes, okay, we have enough. We're not going to do any more. I would have to check with my sources on whether there's even an opening at the present moment. But the idea was that, you know, if funding could be provided for the true value of what these are, then many projects could be done in the hands of many people. Because the biggest problems that we've had in our world has been when power is consolidated to a few and then they abuse that. So if you empower many people, you have much less chance of that occurring again.
Right. Everybody keeps each other in check.
Yep.
Well, there's a different aspect to that.
Weren't many of these bonds bearer bonds? Well, weren't many of these bearer bonds?
Some of them are written as bearer bonds. Yeah, some are bearer bonds.
How do you report bearer bonds stolen?
Bearer bond is different. Those, you can't really do that.
Right.
So it depends on what the bond is. And many different countries had these, you know, whether there be German, France, Mexico, Russian, there's a lot of different ones, Chinese. It was surprising to me to find out how many of these ancient families really were involved in helping all these different countries. And it's quite fascinating. I can't disclose what they have or don't have because that would be violating the trust they've given me. But there's a great, I think, an opportunity here to have a rebirth of the world, to have a system where we can freely exchange. You know, an interesting thing occurred last week when we had the protocol 20 go into place, where we have these smart contracts that can be on the blockchain now. So that gives the ability where, what does that do? And what it does is it removes the middleman. Because usually you'd say, okay, there's going to be a banker that's involved in this, and he's going to help you transact this and help you write up the contract and all that. But if you have smart contracts on the blockchain, anyone can approach a buyer or a seller, write the contract digitally, and be paid. You avoid the middleman. You cut out all of the theft and the graft that was going on in the middle. And now we're just commerce with each other. You know, we're just, you know, buy and sell from each other however we'd like. It's a big deal what occurred. And I actually think that was the natural component of what needs to happen for the closings that'll be coming up.
Cool.
So how do you guys see quantum healing systems fitting into these projects?
Yay. quantum heating systems. Dr. Alfredo's technology is sacred. He has the power of God behind him. And that's going to be let out to the people of the world. How that happens, we'll see. But nothing can stop what's coming.
Okay.
That's directly from Jesus.
Well, can I add to that for you? Because for
Yeah.
Love One Society, which I'm going to give your guys' websites and stuff so that the listeners that maybe follow one of you can follow the others. I think that would be helpful because we haven't done that before. But your website is qfs2020.com. And for the RSS platform, you have said that the beneficiaries will see a button that will allow them to become a member and therefore receive a personal device as a gift.
Well, that's coming. That's coming.
Yes, I'm just saying that so I remind you.
Yes.
And also
I need to be reminded.
I know, that's why you have me.
Yes.
So, and also the wellness centers, the healing centers will be something that a lot of the humanitarians will want to open adjacent to their community assistance center,
Yes.
right? So
Absolutely.
they can handle two things at once.
Yes, they can. If
So
that's what they would like to do.
if that's
But-
what they'd like to do.
But see, there's not just one CAC. There's hundreds all over, thousands, millions, perhaps, all over the world. So, yes, you're right.
Right. Awesome. Alex?
You know, regardless of the wealth, regardless of how much anybody has, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And there are a lot of people who have crossed over for many different reasons who simply died way too young, who had so much more to share with humanity. And the beautiful thing about the quantum healing systems is that it creates inside of each one of us, when we understand how it works and what it's really about and where the actual technology exists, which is everywhere, universally, it's everywhere. It changes how you think and how you not only see the world, but how you see yourself. And I think that aside from resetting the physical body and making healing occur in a profound way, but for me personally, I think it can bring, for me personally, it brought me closer to source, because now I understand that when source sends love, it's literally everywhere, permeating everything. And I have talked to people who have the white device, who have said they've used it for several days, and then all of a sudden they get up one morning and they have this absolutely profound sense of love that they've never experienced before. And I have heard this so many times.
Mm.
And I think it's them reconnecting back to the universe, because, you know, we're all soul, we're all spirit. We've all come from source, and source is the universe. It's everything. And I think what happens is that we suddenly reach this pinnacle and we realize, oh my God, I'm not the physical body, you know? And they have that moment, that epiphany. They realize, you know, I am a physical body, but I am source. I am connected to source. And And I feel that sense of love and profound joy, and no one can explain exactly where it comes from. It's just there. And I truly believe that that's how we were meant to live each moment of each day. I don't believe we were meant to be persecuted, to be in pain and to suffer. I don't believe we were ever meant to be like that. And its contribution is so far that which I've just shared with you, but it's constantly evolving and we have no idea where it will go. But what its most profound thing is that it empowers each individual themselves. They have healing, they feel good, they feel great, they feel empowered, they no longer have any excuses, and each to their own means, they're off to the races. They're ready to go, ready to start over, ready to give back. They've learned all this wisdom about what they don't want. And now that they're feeling great and they're inspired, they're going after what they do want, you know, and they're showing other future generations the way, you know, because we're forefathers and foremothers now, and we're moving forward. And quantum healing systems is a very huge, integral part of that, because it's giving you the potential and the possibility of age regression, giving you back
Yes.
that you would not have had, you know, had you stayed on your original course.
And Cynthia's been talking about new projects that we have coming up.
Yeah.
You know, which we have a few new ones that are going to be coming out, as well as, you know, the closeness or of the healing bed. It's like it's getting closer and closer within reach, as well as she's talked about the replicator lately, the matter replicator, which when you're talking about building, it makes me think like raw materials, you know, and other things that we can atomize and reatomize, you know, and create things out of the ether. So,
But we still need to clear cut the forest because each dead tree is a matchstick.
sure, I agree. I hike all the time, and I always say that. In where I hike, there's so much dead wood. So I agree with that. Well, where do you see quantum healing systems helping with your projects?
It's an integral part of everything that we're doing. I've been involved in alternative health for a long time. Back in the 90s, I was seeking alternatives to the system. It just inherently felt like the right thing to do. What's interesting is that every one of the projects that we're working on, and each of the people that lead these projects, they all want to provide this type of healing to their entire organization. They want every employee to have access. They're willing to pay for it. They're willing to, you know, there was a lot of talk about, oh, what kind of healthcare system can we provide, or, you know, as some sort of an insurance program. But what we're talking about here with QHS is a completely different way of looking at healing altogether. And it doesn't have to be as expensive. You know, a chemo prescription is $500,000. Really? $500,000 for some poison.
And you
I can't
usually
believe we
die.
bought this. We bought this thing. Really? It's incredible. It doesn't have to be outrageous money. We just need to bring the technology to people where they can experience, like Alex said, this is bringing us closer to source. This is actually helping us progress as beings, because what we're going to find is we are creative beings, and we have great power within us. And when we eventually tap into that, we're going to probably find we can heal ourselves one day. I don't know how far down the road that is, but I think that all of this leads us there. And I think these tools help us to accelerate that process of growth, of ascending, of moving in a manner that that blesses us all. So it's interesting. There isn't a single project that I've had discussions with that doesn't want to provide something like QHS to every single employee, but not just the employees. They want to give it to the spouse and the kids and the everything, right? So I think there's going to be a great excitement about moving these technologies forward. And, you know, the next question is, how can we produce more of them? Because I think the demand is certainly there. And I'm
Right.
excited about it. I know what it's doing for me. And
We're working on
I
that.
want everyone to have that.
And
Yes.
with the home healing system coming out, Alex, we need to revisit the Valor project.
I agree.
You
I
know,
agree. It's
that's
time. Well, yeah, we're now we're having some results and we understand how it works and how, you know, it will benefit people. So, you know, we needed to know all that before we started talking about it. We
right.
needed practical experience with it. So yeah, I agree.
And now we're in production. So that brings me to the March movement. So everybody's going to be receiving emails, but we're closed. So membership is now closed to the public. The only way people can become members is through each of your individual links, which I will provide you, or I think you might already have. And other than that, membership is closed. But I'm going to encourage the listeners to check us out. Go to YouTube and look at, we have over 500 videos. It's just QHS QHS on YouTube. And we are here to actually help people be healthier now in all ways. I am on the physical side with health tips, fitness tips, lifestyle habits. We have cooking shows and classes. We have Key and Vibe Tribe, which work on the spiritual side and the emotional and mental side of health. And so we also have this wave, the profound conscious quantum wave, which is provided at all of our meetings, so that even just by engaging in our community, people are receiving healing waves. And oh my goodness, when people tell me about how they feel so much better after being in one of our meetings, it's profound. And to your point, Alex, what we're seeing is it's like that mycelium, right? So this wave, it's going out and it is affecting our members, which then that wave goes and affects their people in their surroundings too. So it's exponentially helping people, and many of them are not even aware of it. So it's pretty amazing.
We're all connected.
Yep.
Yep.
All connected. For those,
Universal love.
if you wanted to sign under me, it would be quantumhealingsystems.org/AC invite. Ron, why don't you give yours?
I have to look it up for him, Alex.
I'll have to look that up.
RG invite, /RG invite. And Mr. B is quantumhealingsystems.org /WB invite.
Yep.
Wow.
So
There's a pattern there.
now pick your choice,
Pick your
pick
initial.
your horse, and go for it.
And Alex, what is your website? So if Ron's, listeners and Will's listeners want to find you, how do they find you?
AlexCollier.org.
Will, how about you?
Enoch Global Services, and it's Enoch, ENOCHGS.com.
And Ron?
QFS2020.com is my website.
Awesome. All right, you guys, anybody want to say anything in closing?
I had just one idea. I should have brought it up earlier. When you look at an atom, you have the nucleus, and you have the other things flowing around it. What keeps that close to the nucleus? because that's centrifugal force. And that would just send it off into wherever. That force that keeps it in as an atom is love. That's why our bodies respond, like you said, if they listen to those loving thoughts and ideas that come from the conference calls, their body is responding because it is love. Our bodies are love. I hope that helps.
Can't top
Love
that.
it.
I love that. Thanks, Ron.
All
So
right.
good to be with you.
Sending love to all of you. Thank you for coming. I'll see you next month.
Take care.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Love you
Gentlemen,
all.
Love you all.
an
Bye
honor,
for now.
privilege. Good night, Tracee.